All right, we'll call the budget meeting, Limit Township budget meeting of February 26, 2025 to order at 6 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Henderson. Here. Supervisor Olson.
Here.
Supervisor Milliburn.
Here.
Supervisor Lucky.
Here. All right. Number one, overview of the 2025 levy limits or the splits.
So at a previous town board meeting, we had looked at where we are going to be splitting the levy. As at the annual meeting, the residents decreased the proposed levy by $73,250. So on the levy splits here, I have the 2025 meeting proposal. That's what we proposed to the residents. And then the 2025 after cutting the $73,250 out. If the board is okay with them, the way that is split up, should probably make a motion on it. And if you guys are not, we need to figure out how we're going to divvy it up.
What were we seeing? So it was 20,000 off from capital improvement.
Yep. 50,000 off of building capital, 10,000 off of recycling capital. And like I stated in the previous town board meeting, the reasoning for that is the township is liable for the infrastructure of the roads as well as public safety. So the fire capital, because we have that fire truck we need to pay for, is getting the 100,000. And then the road and bridge capital is getting the other remaining of the $317,250.
Thoughts?
I don't like the long-term effect of trying to build for some of those projects that some of those were. I get the aspect of it, but it's where, and we'll get into it, these scenarios too. It'd be nice to know operationally what, at some point, we still got to get better operationally. So to just start putting recycling's been trying to get equipment, and that would better serve and possibly share with parks and trying to share across budgets too. That's just the downside of make it less and then try and solve it long term. But I think if we can look at some of it to be operational, maybe it'll come out into this. Do we need that before we can do our 26, or essentially our 26 is based off the total 25 number anyways?
Correct.
So,
and that is why, that's why all of the scenarios are built from
this right here.
These splits, correct?
Because going forward, you'd have to put into this one that didn't have it, so.
Correct.
So there's no suggestions, I mean, as far as hitting operating, right? So, I mean, I guess the two options is to start looking through the operation side to see if we can cut anything there, or accept what Alyssa's already put together here. Is there another option I'm missing?
No, but if you guys remember us going through the 2025 operating budgets, I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't want to go line by line. I'm just wondering
crazy if you're.
But we do have the opportunity within 2025, much like we did last year, to move funds if deemed.
Correct.
So we can review and have some, because we have that history. I mean, that's the thing, when you look at those, you can take some of those 3-year histories and look at the average and go, okay, well, over the last 3 years, we've spent this much on this. Why did this bucket go up this much for 25? And then on top of it for 26. Therefore, maybe we take from that in 25, put it into a capital later on in a later date. But well, like she said, these are all based off of this right now. So,
right. So is there a motion to accept this 2025 cutting that split?
I'll make a motion to accept this levy split for 2025 for the scenarios here tonight.
Right, I'll second that. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. All right, 2026 budgeting factors.
So throughout all of the budgets, because we didn't sit here and go line by line, every single budget increased in the operating funds for the Minnesota paid leave that takes effect January 1st, 2026. Increase in insurances, property insurance, vehicle, workers' compensation, health insurance. There's percentage increases on every fund on that as well. Increases for utilities, gas, electricity, phones, internet, garbages, and wage increases. So on top of that, I went through every single budget to find out the 2025 budget is listed. The 2026 budget is the proposed budget is listed, and then the total increase. And then outside of the factors of the paid leave, insurance, utilities, and wages, I put reasoning, the reasons for the increase, and I'm only showing the increased amounts that are above the previous budget. So for the general fund, the proposed levy is $728,375. The total increase from 2025 to 2026 is $120,368. The factors for that, we do have elections in 2026. The reason why it was a lot less in 2025 is we didn't have any elections in 2025. So we budgeted $40,000 for the 2026 elections. Attorney's fees needed to increase. Auditing services increased, and then as well as increase in our security. Everybody has door swipes now. So that's monthly fees. So that's just where one of the other increases came within that. So from Road and Bridge, the 2026 proposed budget is $444,336. That is a $30,591 increase from 2025 budget. So I mean, if you're looking at these increases, there is reasoning for them. Some of them are not even substantial at all. But for Road and Bridge, we increased the road grading by 5,000, increased the vehicle repairs by 15,000, and increased the ditch mowing and culvert jetting maintenance contractual $5,000 on bridge. If I'm going too fast, you can tell me to stop, or if you have any questions,
No, you're doing perfect.
let me know. Fire department proposed budget for 2026 is $410,530. The total increase is $53,468 from the 2025 budgeting. The reasoning for the increase, we have equipment repair maintenance increased by $1,400. Uniforms, jackets, and clothing increased by $5,000. Personal protective equipment increased by $2,500. Capital outlay other equipment increased by $1,000. Lumber for building props for training and books was increased, or was brought in at $2,000. Lodging increased $2,000. Radio units increased $5,000. Vehicle repair maintenance increased $7,000. Medical operating supplies increased $3,000, and general the generator maintenance contract for 3 years is on there for the $3,600. The police budget, proposed budget is $368,700. That is a $17,000 increase. And those numbers came from speaking with Lieutenant Douglas and the proposal for the 2026 policing contract. The senior center proposed 2026 budget is $87,215. The total increase from 2025 is $10,529. This is due to senior activities increasing $2,000. This is events that are held for residents, such as going to the apple orchard, doing the boat tours, and basically going out with residents. But these are also events where we collect money. So it's not deliberately hitting levy money. It's money comes in, money also has to go out. So we have to budget for that as well. In the Parks Fund, the proposed 2026 budget is $93,857. The total increase was $3,905 from the 2025 budget. And the only one that really jumped out other than the other things was they want to allocate $2,000 for the school forest maintenance and helping maintain that. And the recycling budget proposed for 2026 is $211,169. The total increase from 2025 budget is $27,635. The reasoning is we're budgeting for either a computer or software or something that may be potentially needed in that reuse building when we get that up and operating, as well as brush chipping increased by 7,000 because we know we're going to have a pretty decent pile moving into 2026 if we have 3,000 budgeted for 2025, but the last brush chipping, yes, it was substantially higher because we had a lot of the dirt and debris in there. Now it should be a little bit more standard because we don't have all that extra in it.
It actually got split with the township, didn't it? I mean, it wasn't a huge split because maintenance, I mean, our public works division put stuff in there too. Did part of that get split with that?
I think it was like 25%.
Yeah, it wasn't much, but
Correct. Yep. So, but that was years and years of the pile growing and
Yeah.
foreign debris that shouldn't have been in there. So,
Last year we did this. It was 3,000
mhm,
from that company in Bram. Did that all go to recycling or was that split
Correct.
also? Okay, so all of it went, okay.
Yep. Yep. So, and mainly to them previous fees because we had them big storms. And a lot of, road and bridge did bring in quite a bit of trees. I mean, that's why we ended up allocating, separating that time.
So in the past, have you ever burned the pile rather than chipping it?
we burned it about 12 years ago.
Yep, but
Burned a
typically,
pile, not the
typically
pile.
we chip the wood and then the residents come and take the wood chips.
Okay.
So it's kind of, reusing the product in
Alright.
itself. So, yeah. Yep. So the next page is it's just an overview of all the different funds, the differences from the 2026 to from 2025 budget and the percent and change. Initially with all of the budgets where they came in, we're looking at a 16% change increase in the budget from 2025 to 2026.
Which is what we're seeing from the county. So I mean, obviously that must be kind of what people are seeing as a increase in overall cost.
Yep, and I did reach out to the schools and see if they could maybe help me, prepare more for the annual meeting and just see maybe potentially what they're proposing between St. Francis School District and Forest Lake School District. So I'm waiting to hear back from them. So hopefully I can get the information in order to get it in there because Anoka County has already proposed their levy increase as well.
Onward.
All right, so the reason why I have the CDs in here is they're going to come in play when we're talking about scenarios. So the current investment as of today's date is $726,310.65. The next item on the agenda is the new engine from Rosenbauer. So the purchase order price that we are on contract that was signed is $978,620. The fire capital balance as of today is $194,471. The 2025 levy money is $100,000 being put into fire capital. So the total fire capital for 2025 is $294,471. So the down payment that is due upon the delivery of the chassis is $491,974. We've already put into place a resolution to memorialize the ARPA money. So a portion of that payment is going to be ARPA money of $406,938.19. And then fire capital would be $85,035.81 to finalize the delivery, the down payment on the chassis. So then the balance due on the fire truck when it is completed was going to be roughly $486,646. But then we also get a minus the $18,893 deduction for paying for the chassis. It's a kind of a credit in a way. So then the balance in the fair capital at the end of 2025, we're looking at $209,435.19. The fire department is proposing $100,000 for the levy for the truck and another $100,000 for levying for equipment. So we still need $258,317.81 to cover the remaining of the truck. So as we move forward into the budget scenarios here, we need to figure out how we're going to pay for the remaining of the fire truck here. So it's either levy money, are we going to bond it? Are we going to use CDs? So I need everybody to keep that in mind as we move forward through the scenarios and where we're going to end up here.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Understanding the scenarios, because we do have new supervisors here as well. When we go through the scenarios, typically we like to keep maintain a fund balance at the end of the year to ensure that we have enough funds to cover operating expenses because our levy payments come in July and December. So from when we end the year, we need to make sure that there is a % of the operating fund expenditures remaining in that account in order to carry forward. The Minnesota State Auditor recommends that local governments maintain a fund balance of 35 to 50% of operating revenues at the end of 1 year. We have ran 33%. I mean, we've even talked with our auditors as well, just to, where we're at. But in the upper right-hand corner of every single scenario, you're going to see if that means that the township's moving forward or if we're moving backwards in expenditures and revenues. So does anybody have any questions on the percentage ratios and why we do it?
All right.
So from the last budget meeting, I stated I was going to take everybody's proposed scenarios and throw it for proposed budgets and put it in a scenario and see where that puts us. So entering in everybody's numbers and maintaining fund balances and operating of 33%, the levy would have to increase 43.4%. And like I said, that is everybody's proposed budgets. So I mean, that's no cutting, no nothing. That's what was turned into me and what we need in order to operate.
All right.
So that's the second scenario was to remove 300,000 from the road and bridge capital. And in doing this and leaving all the operating and the other capitals alone, we would still levy $50,000 for road and bridge capital, but in removing the 300,000 from the road and bridge capital, that would increase the levy 29.1%.
It helps.
It did help, but we got to understand that the township is liable for the roads and infrastructure and public safety. So if we are neglecting some things due to funding other capital funds, I understand we need to continue to maintain and do some other things, but the obligations of the township in itself. So scenario 3 is leaving the budgets as proposed and cashing in all of the CDs. So this is also leaving a reoperating fund at 33%. It would increase the levy by 12%.
So this was also removing the 300,000
Nope.
for road and bridge? Okay, so this is leaving it in there and just
Correct.
doing the C's. Okay.
Yep. So the scenario is all the proposed budgets remain, but we would end up cashing in the CDs and we would have to raise the levy 12%.
Mm,
The scenario number 4 is to cut some of the capitals. Well, cut all the capitals and have to bond for the fire truck. And we would leave the CDs. That would also result in a 12.2% increase in the levy. Then my final scenario before we potentially create our own is to cash in half of the CDs and cut some of the capital budgets. And that would be a 6% increase to the levy.
Yeah, come on up, Mike.
With any of the scenarios that you've proposed, what does it keep the fund balance percentage at?
33%.
33, so on the low end, not at 50.
That is correct.
We don't have a public packet?
Yep.
Got it.
Oh, he has that,
Mhm.
okay. I think it's, well, the only reason I asked is because it's right there, so.
So tonight though, in our worksheet ones, we've got, what wasn't last week? It was just general and road and bridge remaining? Or what didn't we have?
It was just general and road and
Just
bridge.
general
That
and
is
road and
correct.
bridge,
Yep. Yep. Yep, and that's why I did the overview of all of the funds and have the spreadsheets too. I was working with Anoka County to figure out how much I needed to budget for 2026 elections, wondering if we have to do that early voting because it's not a presidential. So I was working to try to figure out with connections where we need to be at. So
Just be 2 elections and when's it the primary and then the general? Because there'd be a primary for the governor's race.
Mhm.
Do we have to do anything for a spring election though in 26?
That'd be the primary.
that's the primary.
The March election?
Mhm.
And we would have a local election as well.
Mhm.
I think that'd just be November.
It's not pretty. What's your thoughts? Got a few extra expenses we have to work out here.
On your number 5,
Mm-hmm.
does that one say you would cash in 717,642 of CDs?
Nope, half of this.
Half of that,
Yep, so we would only cash in 350,000 of the CDs.
okay.
Correct. And then that ended up cutting capital funding. Road and bridge capital would get 50,000. Fire capital would get $131,250. I mean, and with this, we're still gonna have to. We would have to bond and or use another CD to finish paying the fire truck off. So leaving remainder, half of the CDs, I mean, we still have that there.
That'd be something nice to.
I think potentially, I mean, we see what Anoka County is doing. They're really hitting hard on 26 proposal because in the long run, they're hoping to only increase by 6.5% annually, starting in 2029. But inflation and everything else, it's just everything's inflating, and that's where we're at. We're just fortunate enough to be sitting where we are sitting. And have the CDs available. Like I said, if they're gone, then
You hate to have them gone.
Right.
You really do.
So the number five, scenario five, that when it says cash and half the CDs and cut some of the budgets, that's taken the 300,000 out of road and bridge, right?
Yes, that is correct.
That's the full 300 out, okay.
Yep. So in scenario five. That is cutting. General capital. Parks capital, senior capital, 300,000 out of road and bridge capital. 50,000 out of building capital. 20,000 out of recycling capital. And 78,000 out of the fire capital.
They don't have capital for 2 years.
Mhm.
If we're lucky.
So, but if you look at the funding balances, general capital fund has 359,000 in it without levying. The building capital has 222,000 in it. Recycling capital has 30,000 now. And if we do get a grant, it's gonna come in, but it's also gonna go out. So therefore it's not gonna affect the fund balance in itself.
Is road and bridge in general in this tonight's Excel?
Yeah,
So one-
capital or the operating.
Oh, it's way over, sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot.
There's a
tabs.
lot of tabs. Yeah, correct. And then I have the LRIP in there, the 1,455,000, but that's gonna come in, but that's gonna come in after as a reimbursement after we pay.
What's that? The red one or the X?
The X. And then. They're all.
What am I looking? Oh,
So
general,
there's, so that's what she added this,
okay.
from what we had last week. It's these 4 tabs. They're just at the end. So
Okay.
general capital.
You-
Yeah, all of the funds are on there. You just kind of have to click quite a bit.
Well, police is continuing to grow every year. And it's gonna make up about 1/6 of our budget again. 1/6 of our overall budget. That's a big ticket item.
How much was there? How much were they raising that for a percentage?
5.
Yep, so
just
go to,
like-
yep, if you go to the police tab, and scroll over, it's all my email communications.
I just
With-
figured out how to do the road and bridge tab, so.
Okay, no, we'll get there. Yeah, so it's all the email communications with Lieutenant Douglas and also like their budgeting staff as well.
But 2 years ago, it was 280,000, I think we paid.
But we got lucky and there was a clause where what was it? They took 40,000 off.
Yes,
Yep, so they took $40,000 off of our billing,
for this year, yeah.
correct?
Yep.
So,
And that was just a 1-year thing.
absolutely, yep, correct. So,
So in 2 years, we're up $90,000
Mhm.
in
did we
police
figure out if
services.
they're staying here?
I talked to him, I seen Deputy, I don't remember, it's Douglas.
Yep.
On Tuesday, talked to him and he was gonna find out and get back to me and.
Yeah.
So have not heard anything yet.
Because operational wise, they've been here, so I'm just assuming they're staying here, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, well, I was told that they would, the other building is ready and all that and.
but we don't get anything back. How are we budgeting for that space? That's not in this contract and back out. So if they were out,
It's on the budget sheet.
it's on, but it's not part of the contract
Correct.
deductions from them, like we give them space. So we're
Mhm.
paying for it out of our,
Which might be something to
yeah.
bring up to them. So,
Yeah, because like I said, fire, I mean, with police making up that much, that big of a percent and increasing every single year, that's something I think we're gonna have to get figured out. Again, I think, well, Mike Parker was gonna talk to Columbus about combining coverage or something like that, and then that stopped. But I think that's something that we need to start on too, is figuring out our cost on police.
I can get a hold of a Columbus and see what was discussed and
Sure. Budget scenario 5. Still raising the levy quite a bit.
yep, it'd be raising the levy 125,000.
That's taking half the CDs out.
Correct.
and
That's
if
still
we-
cutting
we
the
needed
budgets.
to use it for the fire truck, there'd be enough for in that.
Yep, there would be enough remaining in the CDs that we wouldn't have to bond, but
We combine some of these.
like I said, that's why I have scenario number 6, we're gonna make one.
Okay.
I'm going to make it white though, so I can see. Where would we like to start?
Bigger. See the,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, Alyssa.
Okay.
this one, the plus?
Yeah.
Oop. I want to see the whole sheet at the same time.
Oh, the whole,
Yes.
all colors?
Yep, I
Oh,
want to
then-
see, I want to see this sheet, the whole
Oh,
thing,
then you gotta go minus.
minus. I'm gonna start calling for IT help. That's awesome.
I think we're gonna end up having to use some of these CDs. I don't know if we're gonna have to use half of them. Number 1 scenario is out, right? I mean, that's a 43.4% increase.
3 and 4 are.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Bob. But how we want to slice this up or try a different scenario? Cash in half the CDs. So if we cash, let's see. So number 4 was to cut capitals and then have to bond for the fire truck. Still leaves us at $150,000 levy increase.
Mhm.
So if we cashed in, let's say, a fourth of the bonds or the CDs, what does that put us at then?
So you're talking, you want to raise the levy a little more? So are you talking altering?
Well, number 4 is
Scenario
to
number
cut
6.
capitals and then bond for the truck. And that puts us at 12.2%. So if we cash in a quarter of our CDs,
On the number four.
number four, yeah.
Okay.
Would it help this out if we semi-decided right now if we're gonna bond for that truck? Can we make that solid decision right now if we can bond for that truck? Cause that's gonna help us do this.
Yeah. That's what my thought
we
was,
all
'cause that's
might.
what we talked.
I think we
about at
have
the
to.
beginning.
I don't think we have a choice. We didn't, nobody wants to, but I don't think we have a choice. To come up with $500,000, I don't think we have a
Right.
choice.
Oh, exactly. Chris, come on up.
When this truck was approved, what was the plan then? I
Plan
mean,
then,
was there discussion at that time when we ordered the truck on how were we gonna pay for it?
yep, and it was ARPA for half of it. What we had in capital, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, if you remember, but it was what we had in the capital for it. And then we talked about bonding out the rest as a possibility.
Okay. So then it's bonding.
Right, yeah, this isn't nothing new.
No. So are we all or are we all agreeing that that is definitely gonna be our plan? We're not making the decision to do it right now, but I think we have to
Yeah, we don't
make
have a
that plan
choice.
right now.
So scenario 4, John,
Mhm.
is where we cut all the capitals and cash in a quarter of the CDs. That would leave us at a 3.8% increase, and our levy would be 2,155,000. But if you look on the screen here, that's no capital. It's cutting all the capital,
And not any operating?
correct? With fund expenditures remaining at 33%.
I know we've all done this. But I made the mistake of going to Walmart and trying to buy an 18-pack of eggs. And after my mortgage came out, I couldn't afford it. And you gotta realize the people in 2 weeks, they're doing the same damn thing we do. And we gotta think about the people in this, so echoing. We gotta think about the people who are. We gotta be thinking about these people in that too. Because if we get a resident who stands up like last year and says something and they agree on it. I don't want to go to 12% because just because the county's going 16, I'm not following the county.
No, and it makes it even worse that they're doing
I
that.
agree 100%. I
Mhm.
mean, if we can do this between, say, 6 and 8%, 6 and 9%, we have a small chance of survival in 2 weeks. But if people get blasted with 12%, I mean, we all know what it is out there. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous out there.
And that's the number I was trying to get to with the CDs, but that quarter of the CDs was what, 180,000,
I did 175.
175. So we probably don't need to do a quarter of it. We might be able to do 5 or 10% to get us down to that, 6 to 9% that you're talking about. Because again, 200 to come in here and ask for $253,000.
It'd be pitchforks.
Yeah, when things are tough for everybody as it already is.
Where are you looking percent wise that you would feel comfortable going to the residents at the annual meeting?
6 to 8. Not 68, 6 to 8.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, come on up, Mike.
I get it. I've been through this process for 14 years. I get it. I personally, as a resident, obviously, I don't want to see stuff to go up any higher than it has to. I personally don't think it's unreasonable to have a 10% increase and try to use some of the money that we already have as opposed to bonding it because that has to get paid back. So we're still going to be paying it one way or the other anyway. So maybe there's a way to do the scenario where it's a 10% increase. We take some of that CD money to help so that we don't either we eliminate the bonding or don't have to bond as much. Like I said, I know everybody has different views on it, but with the cost of what everything has been, 10%, I realize it's a large number when you look at the dollar, but in terms of percent, it's very realistic with where things need to be. And the reality is, I've seen it before when we very first started the roller coaster. So we have no capital, then we have capital, then we have no capital. It makes future spending plans almost impossible because it's never there. And so I know there has to be some give and take, but I think we should at least look at considering what happens if the levy is at that 10%. I wouldn't suggest more, and using some of those CDs so that we don't have to cash all of that in to pay for it. So,
Do you know in your profession what the interest rates are on bonding right now?
no,
You don't, okay.
no, it's completely different.
Is
I
it?
mean, it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's not like a typical loan, but still,
But
then
it's the closing cost that's so bad with bonding, isn't it?
I don't know, we can get stuff as a government entity. There's different outlets of things of whether you're gonna bond or, do all that. But again, so then where does that monthly payment then come in? That has to be budgeted for somewhere as well.
Well,
And if it's,
And
and
the fire
if,
department's trying to budget 130,000 a year, there's your payment. And again, you're not building anything up.
right, and that's the issue. I mean, and obviously, if you do a 5-year bond or, 4-year bond, I don't think that that's fair to fire department to have to give up all of their capital just to pay for that bond, because then that's not going to allow them to get things in the future either, and things might be really good now, but again, trying to plan 3-4 years down the line, we're at a spot, unfortunately, because the fire truck, all the financing wasn't 100% planned out ahead of time. It's like, well, we need to try to figure something out, because I personally think too, it's a wrong decision to cut out all the capital. There has to be some capital across the board, and, kind of go from there. And even if anything, even if you propose something at the annual meeting that maybe is higher than what think he's going to go through, at least if you've tried to put a number in there that has some capital, if it gets voted down for a lower number, then that's a spot for you to cut. Because if you come at the bare minimum to that meeting and they say, you know what, we're not going to do it, you're going to bond it and do this, and the number's less, now you're going to have to go back into actual departments and make those cuts. So just a couple different, things to kind of look at and consider. So.
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Mike.
And technically, exactly what he said is what's happened since we bought the last truck. I mean, we're always, in a perfect world, we bought the last truck. As soon as we were done bonding for that, we would just build up our accounts and we'd have an account. But our account's nowhere. I mean, it's the same as it was the day we paid that truck off, and that's. Yeah.
So this scenario here, scenario 5, I have just made it up on the board here. This would entail what Mr. Halliday just said. It is a 10% increase. And that would be only cashing in $300,000 of the CDs. And then minimally cutting the capital fundings. So I mean, there's still capital getting put in here. And if we bring it to the residents and it happens like last year, then we're back to what we did previously.
But it goes to exactly what you said, and what we need to be doing is, what is that capital plan? Putting it away and saving for it, but if you don't have the project lined up, and now we just, like we did last year, we just took it away. We just set all those projects back.
We had a resident, he made a spreadsheet for 30 years and brought it up to us and put a whole spiel on it. If Road and Bridge does this, you can buy this machine in 22, buy this machine in 29, but you get one hiccup, and that didn't work. And I don't think we've looked at that since he did that 7 years ago. It's perfect if it works.
But I think that's the education and showcasing as well too. That's where we need to, at the annual meeting, lay those department plans out. Again, not everyone's gonna go perfect world for it, but I have a hard time just saying, yep, give more money, but if you don't have a plan for it,
Mhm.
if you can tell me that I'm going to get this as a resident in this year, and this is why we're doing it, and and then the majority of the residents agree with it, then that's the direction to go. Cause that one's, cause which capitals are omitted in that one?
So I only took 10,000 off of the general capital. Took that 298,000 off of the road and bridge capital. And then 75,000 off of fire capital, 10,000 off of recycling capital. And I took 50,000 out of building capital.
Place to start.
And what number does that put us at? 10%?
10%.
Okay.
Yep, and that would be $207,675 that it would increase. Total final levy would be $2,284,000 or $2,284,425.
That then it's still 33%.
Yep.
It's a place to start.
So, also, I mean, there's concern last year. I think there'll be a lot of concern this year. Typically, it looks like what we do is we have our annual meeting, we set the budget and we close the meeting and it's done. What about recessing and bringing it back in the fall?
Yeah,
Well, we maybe know more.
This is not due until September.
Cause this way, I mean, right now we're guessing again. There's so many variables.
We're always guessing.
And we'll still be guessing in September, but at least in September, we might know a little bit more about where we're at than we do right now. But if we recess and then come back in the fall, at least we can make some adjustments at that point.
Is it the beginning of September or the end of September? Do you know that?
I don't.
Okay. I would say at least the latest, the first, but maybe the last meeting in August even, just so- in
Mhm.
case we look at it again.
I mean, cause I
And maybe they might like it.
mean, I feel like if we're coming in and asking for this number, I think if we don't finalize it until fall, I think it's easier to say, okay, it makes sense that it's gonna go up 10%. This is what it is. But I would find it easier as a taxpayer to buy into this if I know that it's gonna come back and be revalidated in the fall. That would be me personally. Cause if we find that we're sitting better, well, then that number is gonna come down. If we're sitting worse, we might be trying to make this work or ask for a little bit more. What are your thoughts?
I'm,
So you're not gonna wanna make a decision in 2 weeks?
No, I
You're
would
not
say
gonna want the
you,
people to make a decision?
well, no, as I understand it, those, yeah. Pardon me?
Still the people.
Yep.
Yep, so the people will propose where we're going to set the levy. Motion will be made. The township then has an obligation. We don't have to certify the levy until fall. So,
we would have another meeting then.
It'd be
People
another,
can come.
correct,
So you just can't go over what the public,
that is correct.
that's right.
You can lower it, but you can't go over.
I mean, that gives us a few extra months in there, 5 months, 6 months or whatever to know whether if we can save some more money someplace else. I mean, cause we still haven't negotiated with the fire or the police. If we end up finding out that we can combine or there's other ways that we can save, that can come back in the fall. And that,
Just July 1 for all the cities, is that right?
No, they're.
no, it's
No.
December.
So that's what pushes it out. Police will be working theirs and the cities won't do theirs until December. So them giving Alyssa, this is them at best helping us out because we're the only one in the county that has to have numbers right now. So they're probably somewhat apprehensive even giving you that number because it's so early. Because they probably have their own union contracts and everything internal they have to work through before they present it to the others that they work with.
They're
So
guessing, but they're never lower than they give us a number.
Yeah, come on up, Mike.
My only comment with that would be, is it had better be explained crystal clear, because people will be livid if they come here and they think that there's going to be changes made after that meeting, because we've discussed that previously and it was a nightmare. So again, if it is that this is the cap, that it can't go any higher, and we're going to try to propose a levy that's potentially less, completely different conversation, because people will not want to come back again in September. And I think that'll cause more issues. So, I mean, I get what the end goal is. Yes, if we have some better numbers, maybe there's some cuts or things that we can do differently. And the whole intent of that levy meeting is just to set, here's our hard number. Totally get that. But again, it just has to be made super clear. And if that's part of the proposal, hey, what we have right now, this is the max that we're going to be at. We're hoping when we recess this and reconvene in the fall that we're going to be able to figure out some other ways to make some changes. But at least what we're proposing and what you proposed tonight will be the max that the levy is going to be set at.
Correct. To recess, though, that's a decision of the people at that meeting. It's not a board decision, so, yeah. Right.
I know a
Well,
lot about this. You interested in getting on the board? We got a vacancy.
yeah. One letter of interest, that's all it takes.
Blood pressure.
All right, well, 10% is the 207 you said. That's your modified scenario 4.
Yep, that's correct. But modified scenario 5.
Modified.
So, yep, so that is cashing in 300,000 in CDs,
Cut some.
cut some of the budgets, not all of
And
them.
then we can always do more CDs if it worse and
And when that says cut some of the budget, you talking the,
I'm talking capital.
oh, okay.
Yep.
So we don't plan on cutting any operating. We're giving everybody what they're asking for operating?
If you want to go through and cut them, you can cut them. It's,
Well, we're gonna have to find out in 2 weeks if we have to cut them.
Is that where we're at? Modified 5?
The modified 5?
yeah,
Make a motion to go with the modified scenario 5.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
I'm going to save this before.
All right.
Can you send that out to everybody, please?
All right. Anything else then tonight, Alyssa?
Are we having a budget meeting around it?
What are we gonna cover if we did meet tomorrow night? This basically was what we did in the past. The third night was usually, yeah,
Whatever you did to get all this together.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, instead of 3 hours long, 3 times.
We can only discuss budget tomorrow, so.
I complimented you. Oh, tomorrow.
Do you have anything that you want to go over, or should we?
No, I just need to start working on the annual meeting, so.
All right. Board members, any reason why you think we need to meet tomorrow for budget?
Don't think so.
might as well save our energy for next month.
All right. Is there a moment?
It's sick either.
is this the latest
what you
Excel
coach
that was
about.
sent out?
No, I have what I've been working.
Yeah, you got that one now, but I mean, the one that was in our drive right here is what we got
Correct.
right before the meeting.
Yep.
Okay, so that's got the general and it's got the road and bridge in it, so
That is correct.
we can look at all operatings.
Right. Then we should probably make a motion to cancel tomorrow night's meeting. Is there a second?
Cancel Thursday, February
27th.
27th.
27th budget meeting.
All right, motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, that motion passes. Last one on the agenda, folks. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 6:55.